Hello everyone and welcome to the Blaston commentary series or something with your host, yours truly, Robo President, where we go ahead and we talk about Blaston news, we critique my awful gameplay, and we just watch gameplay, well, my gameplay together. And we talk about Blaston. Today's topic of discussion is going to be twofold, since we have a longer series of uninterrupted gameplay to discuss together. And remember, this is unscripted. I just roll it off the tongue because I absolutely hate scripts. They are for simps. Today's topic of discussion is going to be about attachments. And then we are also going to talk a little bit about community in general. But I want to touch on the latter first, on community. Talking about members of the community, how Blaston as a community stacks up against other games, and, just how the experience is in general. We're watching gameplay against me and Yelkel and myself, and Yelkel has a bit of a interesting reputation in the community for being, let's just say he's one of the most sportsman-like players in the entire community, and that is not sarcasm at all. He's truly one of the greats. He had some absolutely fantastic offense there, but I think it was a good hedge point there to start into, community. I think Blaston is probably blessed in a lot of ways to have a very kind and helpful community. You don't often see this a lot in a lot of current games, and I think this comes from the age and the size of Blaston's community. Blaston is the player counts are not currently known as an official number. The resolution doesn't release that to us. We can speculate. I would imagine that it's not over a few, maybe 1,000 is generous. And that's not a knock on the game. I mean, VR is niche as it is. And this is on a niche platform already, so we're getting into multiple levels of compartmentalization here. Not to mention that this type of game is literally 1v1 competitive dodgeball with guns, right? So this is not a military shooter like Call of Duty, so the community is kind of small. But with that, it's very tight-knit. And with a tight-knit community, you have two possible outcomes. Being on the internet for a long time, I've seen it happen both ways. Either they're extremely xenophobic to outsiders, so they gatekeep and they don't want people to come in. Or, in Blaston's case, while they're in Blaston being a competitive game, we might tend to rough up new people a little bit, because sometimes with new people, they can be upstarts. It can happen. Somebody comes in, they knocked over a few bronze and silver bots, and they moved up the ranks quickly. So now they're at champion. They're feeling a little hoity-toity, right? So they need JJ to come in and remind them, who the champ is. At the end of the day, most of the members of the community are very kind. And I think that's one of the strengths of Blaston. I've mentioned the Blaston community Discord a couple times. If you guys are watching me and you're not a part of it, go be a part of it. It's probably one of the better game development, game Discords in general. And it has a very unique culture because of this unique game. And people are extremely willing to walk you through and help you. So, not only will they help you learn advanced techniques, but it's just funny. And the age range, too, in gameplay is so vast Because at the end of the day, and I'm sure this is the case with several types of video games, not just Blaston, but you have athletes, young athletes who are little teenagers, and then you've got old adults, and so you've got varying degrees and varying stages of life. It's a huge melting pot, but mostly everyone seems to get along for the most part. There's some notable exceptions, but the exceptions don't spoil the entire broth. And so I think Blaston's community is pretty dang great. And I'm hoping that's not just because it's small. I am hoping that if this game grows, and to quote a good friend of mine who once said, this game has a future. I won't say who he is on the air, because I think he knows who he is. This game does have a future. If he is right, and this game does eventually blow up, I know it's been a while, but it can happen. I mean, look at Among Us, right? Among Us blew up 10 years later. Then, you know, will the quality of the community change at that point? Yeah, communities often do really change after massive explosions of popularity. It's completely normal. Usually they tend to have a dip. But I think so far Blaston's been pretty good on that department. Not to mention too, our community manager Defer is pretty rock solid. I don't really have anything bad to say about him. He's a genuinely nice guy. He's rock solid, pretty funny, and I'm not gonna sit here and make this simp hour, but yeah, I genuinely have developed a lot of good friendships with people I've never met, and I'm not the kind of person to make online parasocial relationships with a lot of people. So, Blaston's online community, really cool. So, generally, yeah, cool community. This is also notwithstanding too, the community has made all kinds of events on their own. They will fill gaps if, let's say, that there's a sufficient deficit in official events, then commentators or content creators will create their own events. So, for example, as we all know, the Mad Doctor, Dr. Oolong, had fight nights going on, and then there was, before Cruiser fell into the depths of Sheol and died and, kept having his weird resurrections and never coming back. Or at least saying he was coming back and then never coming back. There was Cruiser's, whatever it was called, league, V-League or Virgin League, or I don't remember what it was. But that was a thing. So, those were all community-made just things where people got together. And Resolution noticed that and gave us the tools to do even more with tournament mode. So, if the game grows, then the potential for those sorts of things will just grow with time. Rock solid. All right. So, after some stinging losses to Yellkel and Turbo, I'm feeling like we need to change things up in my loadout. So, let's go ahead and pivot and talk about attachments. Attachments obviously being the hot topic of the past few months before the most recent update. So Blaston Reloaded is the current title update of the season. Before this, Blaston's gameplay balance was just based on weapons and weapons alone. You could not modify weapons outside of cosmetic skins. Now weapons can be modified with attachments that will alter a weapon's functionality based on whatever attributes the attachment will give it, and you typically have to unlock the attachment by doing challenges. So, with not all weapons have attachments yet, but I believe the goal is eventually to make all weapons have attachments. So I think probably about 40% of them do at the moment. But they will eventually get there. Now, with the way that these attachments are balanced, Blaston at its core is very much, in essence, an arena, a dodgeball arena shooter, if that makes sense. So basically, you have two opponents standing in front of each other, trying to hit each other, and they have, quote unquote, and I'm going to use air quotes here, near equal spawns, because we know every scenario is not equal. See my last video on the fact that I got a better spawn than somebody in a match. It happens. But for the most part, based on some of the loadouts you choose in your configurations, it's supposed to be up to the skill of the operator, right? Now, what attachments have done is attachments have allowed varied gameplay. There have been some questions about some balancing issues, or I wouldn't say issues. I think issues is a bit of a strong word. And I don't want to diminish the hard work that Rez has put into this, because they clearly have. They put in a lot of work into this. And I know that if you've been active in the Discord, I've made comments about some of the attachments, and I'm not walking any of that back, but I just want to make my position clear. I simply believe the following about attachment theory and game balance theory, and I'll restate my positions right now. So, it's the following. First, stock weapons should be inherently viable, period. So, I should have the option to use a stock weapon and not feel underpowered for using the stock weapon of any particular weapon variant. So that should be a choice that I have as a player. And me using a stock weapon should not feel like a inherent all the time detriment. Now, to be fair, the point of attachments is to give situational variances and by extension advantages. But as we're going to get into in today's commentary, there are some cases where certain attachments by numerical advantage alone are almost always an advantage, and thus you're better off just using them all the time. There's no point in using the other versions of those attachments. So, first position, just point number one. Stock versions of a weapon should not be obsolete, or they should be viable, or should not be made completely unviable by another version of a later attachment. So, essentially what that boils down to, if you want to do a TLDR of that theory, attachments are side grades, not upgrades, because they add new ways of playing, but not eclipse the weapon's original function. Second thing with attachments. Essentially, a given attachment in a weapon should not make another weapon on a entirely different weapon. It shouldn't be better than another weapon. So, let me give an example that I feel very strongly about on this. Bounce Luma and Vector. So if you look at Bounce Luma and you look at Vector, in Bounce Luma's case, so let's look at the stats of each weapon, right? So so Vector is a 4-second cooldown weapon, right? So when you use Vector and you dump it on the ground, the moment Vector comes out of play, it's going to take 4 seconds for Vector to spawn back into play. Now, what do you get for spending Vector? Because essentially, you want to think of it as when you're shooting Vector, you're spending it for possible damage. Now, you get 3 projectiles per shot, and each projectile does 6 damage, I believe. I will correct that on screen if I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong, because remember, I'm doing this off the top of my head. Scripts are for Sims. You know the deal. But I believe is it 6? I think it's 6. Might be 4. I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head, okay? I'm totally doing this off the top of my head. So, but you get 4 projectiles. But what I do know is, no, you know what? I think it is 4, because the max damage you can get from those 3 projectiles is 12 on a full body shot. So if I was to nail you with all 3, you're gonna end up with 12 damage on somebody. So, and you get 2 of those bursts. So I can pull the trigger twice and shoot 6 projectiles with a max total damage of, I believe, 24 damage total for 4 CD. Now, oh, somebody just drove by. Did you hear that? This is why we should go to electric cars, people. And car heads annoy the crap out of me. I'm just kidding. I like cars too, but I'm just trying to sleep, man. Anyways. Okay, so you get 24 potential damage with a Vector. Now let's look at the bounce Luma, because that's another bounce weapon, right? So the main thing here is that it has less bounce, I believe, than a Vector. So that's one attribute to keep in mind. But you get 3 shots with, and I'm going to make the assumption that the user is pulling back, they're drawing the bow all the way back so they get the 2 shots, and if both arrows were to meet their target, it's 14 damage, right? So 14 times 2, that's 28, and then 28 plus another 14. I'm really bad at math. 24 is gonna laugh at me. Look, dude, I'm an IT guy, not a math guy. I believe. Let's see. That's gonna be carry the 2. What is that? Whatever. It's less. It's more than the Vector, right? So with an attachment for the same amount of CD, you end up with a weapon that has more potential damage than the Vector does, and it fulfills the same role, which is kind of weird because that's the Vector's main weapon role. So that's kind of a problem. Very much, I would say. So yeah, I would say that's a little weird. So point number 2. Attachments should not make another weapon obsolete just in its category, if that makes sense. So, point number 1, they should not make the stock weapon obsolete. Point number 2, they should not make another weapon somewhere else obsolete. Oh my goodness, the street racers are out in full force today, brother. I would say that point number 3 to an attachment is just kind of a universal point, and that would just be that it needs to follow the main rules of weapon balance, and it can't take a weapon outside of its established role. So every weapon fits into one of 3 roles, and that's offense, defense, and utility/trapping. If an attachment pulls a weapon out of that role, so let's say, for example, I'm just going to make a big example here. You have, the Nova. The Nova being a trapping tool first, because it is a trapping tool. Trapping, trap first. And it should have more trapping utility first. And it has some defense utility. Some. So then let's say you take the HP attachment, and what we lovingly call Tank Nova. Now what happens here is it still has a ton of trapping utility. 20 damage is a lot of damage. I know I covered this in the last episode, but I want to reiterate this point. So now what's happened is you have a weapon that still traps very well, but it comes out into the defense zone really far. And so that's a little weird because it does a better job than in my opinion, than a lot of the shields do. So, and shields should be that shields should be doing that job the best. The defense part of Nova should be a secondary function of Nova. It should not be its primary function. So, man, while I've been ranting this whole time, dude, I've been getting absolutely clapped today. So this is just proof to you guys that Robo does get clapped. There's just days where I get jacked up. Anyways, So if you guys, those of you guys that want to see Robo get crapped on, get clapped, yeah, this is your day. Attachments that would like now. I know I just covered HP Nova, but I know I just crapped on Bounce Luma, but Bounce Nova actually sort of plays into the trapping aspect a little bit. Maybe some of the rear bouncing can be tweaked a little bit, but maybe not, because you can just counter them. You can just shoot them. I really don't think Bounce Nova is that overpowered. It's the tank Nova that's a little spicy, because it's just so... You gotta spend so much CD to get them out of your face. And if somebody is really trying to pin you down with them, it's not the business. Anyways. So those are the 3 points of attachments. First point, can't override a stock weapon. Second point, can't override another weapon. And third point, can't take a weapon out of its established role. Now, with the onset of the attachments, some of these attachments held to this philosophy pretty well, actually. I think the hammer, the stock hammer, I'm sorry, not the stock hammer, just the normal hammer, and not the hammer E, but the hammer that I'm using right this very second, followed this philosophy very well. The attachments they all play to its particular point in the weapons class, which is a versatile workhorse, which plays many roles, because that is what a shotgun should do. And none of the attachments, honestly, make the stock gun any less viable. Another one that's pretty close to this is the snowball, except that I think the speed snowball is kind of useless, because 5 damage I don't think is enough for 2 CD. I can do 5 damage in a fart. It's like a wildcat burst will do 5 damage, and I get 13 of those in a mag. Like, there's no point in spending an entire 2 CD to throw one at somebody. So I don't think that's a good trade. But that being said, the other attachments are pretty dang balanced. Slowing it down for 20, I don't think that's too unreasonable. And slowing it down for collision or whatever, also not unreasonable. And it still keeps the stock viable, because if you want that extra speed, you can. And I know, I think I had a small discussion in the Discord about, I thought that Snowball 3 didn't do anything to debuff, because because on paper, when you put on the attachment, it doesn't say that it's changing anything. But I went back and sat there at the dummy loadout and beat the crap out of the Ozo dummy, or the Octo dummy, with different snowballs. And yeah, you guys were right. You can notice a small perceptible speed difference, but big butts here. I still think, personally, I think Snowball 3 is probably the best one, because people just drop lock your snowballs. Like, it's so easy to drop lock them. That tiny speed difference, so you can just punch through someone's drop lock or shooting them, I think is way worth it. Anyways, so Snowball, well-balanced attachments. Great. That's a great philosophy there. Snowball. Hurricane's another good one. Hurricane is balanced very, very well. In my opinion, the stock one, the stock Hurricane still works very well. The other ones, there's like the heavy Hurricane one. If you're trying to do like a rush build, it's not great, but it's fine. But that's kind of the point. That's the point. I know, I think, and I get some of the sentiment. It was told to me that people want to be excited for unlocking the attachments. Yeah, and you should be. But, I don't know. They still shouldn't be better than the... it's a competitive game, so balance is super, super important, I guess. Anyways. So Hurricane, and then Hurricane 2 is good because you get more ammo, less damage. Like that's no brainer. And then the Rain Hurricane, at first people thought the Rain Hurricane was off, but it's really not. You're just getting more consistent damage, but the damage is so low that it's not like the end of the world. It's just giving you more consistent damage coverage, which in some ways is good and bad. Like, you're trading like more hits for less damage, which I mean, it depends. Like, once again, remember my philosophy. Is more consistent damage generally better? Yes. So that should be the better attachment. But if you can nail people with the stock Hurricane, if you have better shot placement, that's the better one, because higher consistent damage is always better. So, yeah. So, I mean, another great balanced, absolutely fantastic balance on the attachments there. And then we start to get into some of the weirder balancing attachment guns at the moment. We've already talked about Nova to death. Obviously Tank Nova is the undisputed champion, because Tank Nova, Speed Nova is absolutely, I'm sorry, it's bad. Nobody uses Speed Nova. The point of Nova is slow. Slow. You want it to be slow. You want to set up your combos. You know what? I just thought of this. Maybe if Tank Nova was faster, that wouldn't be so bad. Because the point, if you're wanting Nova to be more for defense and less for trapping, then it would need to be faster. So you can't just sit there and camp behind it and set up your stupid combos. So, think about that. Don't, you can, you guys know, Rez, you got my docs. You know me. You know who I am. So you can send me the check on that idea anytime. Anyways, so yeah, Speed Nova is not great. Also, Tank Nova is undisputedly the champion, because Tank Nova will hard counter Bounce Nova, and Bounce Nova being the one that bounced off the walls for the uninitiated. And if you're having any questions about that matchup, just watch my game, my VMR, the only VRML. Goodness gracious, that's so hard to say. What? Who came up with that acronym? VRML game with Dr. Oolong, where I basically gave him the smash, I hit it and quit it. Beat Dr. Oolong and then retired. The undisputed champion of the world. So you can see what happens there when someone who's really good with Novas goes up against your average Tank Nova player. It was just not. Your average Tank Nova enjoyer just didn't go well. So, there's a clear champion among the attachments in that particular weapon there. And then we go to, for example, the Hammer Nade. So you have the stock one. Stock one's fine. Stock one is still very viable. It's a good nade. And then you kind of get the weird, where it turns into like a javelin, and it groups the attachments, the shots together, and they come down in a ring. I think that one's kind of cool. I like that concept a lot actually. But in practice, I think it's a little too expensive for what it is. Maybe on the CD side, I don't know. I couldn't really get anything going with that one. So maybe there's some balance that needs to be there. But I like the concept. That one was really neat. So maybe one day, if that can just get tweaked right, that I can see that being a really cool attachment. Because if you can box someone in and then spear someone with all those bees, oh man, that would be an absolutely dirty attachment. Then there's I think there's the faster one that does even more damage. It's like the faster one. I think that one on its own, I don't think that would be the worst one in the world. But the problem why it never gets used is because then there's the slow Hammer Nade. And this is why slow attachments in Blaston, I think inherently are going to be better, because they give you more setup time. Because all you need to do is fire and forget. Fire and forget, and then drop your weapon as fast as possible and cycle for the next one. So with the slow hammer nade, you're basically what you're taking is you're taking an offensive weapon, an offensive grenade, because hammer nade is sort of one of the most offensive of the nades. And nades inherently are sort of like distraction tools, but hammer nade has offensive utility because it's like a shotgun nade. And then you're turning it into like a trap wall. So you can see right here with Namzil, you know, if I time that throw just right, your window for that super damage window where you pop all those projectiles on him is a lot longer too. And you just dump on the poor guy. And then your deployment options on how you use it are crazy. You can throw it out in front of you like a wall and just let them slowly travel in. I saw a really good move in the JJ versus 24 game where JJ threw it behind him and then he let it travel towards 24. I never even thought of that. I mean, that's a good way to delay time because those projectiles move so slow, give you cycle time for the next thing. Like, not a bad idea. You can throw it out in front of you. You can throw it up behind somebody. The possibilities for that grenade are absolutely endless. So, clear winner. I think there's very niche situations where the stock one is probably better for your build, but more often than not, the slow one is the way to go. More often than not. It's not... I've seen some talk on when to use stock, or even the more damaging one, but slow one makes more sense most of the time. And then, moreover on these attachments that where the balance is maybe a little more questionable. Viper. Let's talk about Viper, since I'm going up against Zartok and he's using one of the most controversial attachments with Viper. And I think I'm also using it too, so I'm one to talk. But, so Viper, you've got Stock Viper. Stock Viper has been sort of a staple in a lot of high-skill loadouts for a long time. It's not often used at very, very, very high levels. I think the only people that really used it at maybe the top 20 were before this update. So before Reloaded, the only two people that I really saw use it a lot. And look, I get it in the comments. They're like, no, I used it too, Robo. And then nerd emojis everywhere. The only two people that I saw use it with any regularity were Tim. Gets another shout out this episode. Because he always seems to be on every time I'm playing. Because we're intrinsically linked to one another. And actually Yelkel. Again, he also gets another shout out. Freaking nerd. So they used it a lot. But most people tended to stick to Viper E. I know Captain Fab would run double Vipers, but most people wouldn't run solo Viper. They would usually complement it with Viper E. And I know Captain Fab was one of them. And I know there's a couple other people who run double Vipers. Woody would run double Vipers. There's plenty of others. Double Vipers was actually, I don't think, that rare. But straight Viper by itself was a little more uncommon. However, with the onset of these attachments, straight Viper has become a lot more common because bounce Viper is scary. It's very scary because you have to counter it. Because if you don't counter it, you've got a ticking time bomb right behind you that's going to cost you 25 health if you don't take care of it. And it's going to completely screw you over. Now, let's talk about the other attachments before we talk about the bounce real quick. So you've got stock, 30 damage, whatever. It's your sniper pistol. It's been around for a long time. Not really much to talk about. Tim and Yelkel used it to varying degrees of success, although I would say Tim used it more successfully because he would get in your face after clamping the crap out of you. And Yelkel would do like the weird super majestic thing where he would turn around and not look at you and then super majestic, which you've actually seen a couple times in this video. But it never really seemed to work a ton before now. So whatever, that's stock. And then now there's like the more damage one, which is like nutty. It's more damage for less speed, so just 36 damage. 36 is a ton of damage in Blaston. That's almost 40. And 40 is almost 50. Look, I get it's not. I know I'm rounding up here, but you only have 100 health in Blaston, so 36 is a ton of damage in a single shot. but the projectile is so slow and small, which is the problem here. It's not like there's a ton of them. I know I just talked about the benefits of slow projectiles, but there's only one. So you're probably not going to hit the guy because they're going to know exactly what you're up to. So that one never gets used at all. And stock never gets used anymore either. And then there's the third attachment, which is like this rapid fire thing, which I really don't see anyone use a lot for the same reasons. It gets dodged easily. So that leaves Bounce Viper. And the reason why Bounce Viper is so strong is, one, essentially what it gives you, if you miss, is it gives you an extra chance to hit your target. So in a roundabout way, and like this is like super wanky-danky logic, but it gives you 6 shots to hit your target, essentially, if you're missing. I mean, it gives you 3 shots, but and if you hit them every time, then I mean, you're good. But if you're not good, it's giving you 6 chances to hit your target. And the best part about those return shots is most of the time your opponent has to turn around and look to make sure they're not going to get poked in the bum by this freaking red hot Mike and Ike looking death orb. It's coming right for them. So the Bounce Viper is kind of dangerous, and so it's like the attachment to use, and it's only 5 damage less. So there's really there's no reason not to use it over stock. There's really none. I mean, if you're using stock Viper, you're doing yourself a disservice, and that plays into what I was talking about with attachments taking over the stock version of the weapon. Then let's see, what's another weapon that kind of got a weird treatment with versions of it. So we talked about the Viper, we talked about the Hammer Nade, we talked about the Nova. I would say the Wildcat borders on this nearly. Close. It's close, but it's not. So let's talk about Wildcat a little bit. So Wildcat, you have, to be honest, I haven't even bothered to unlock the other Wildcat attachments because I know that Wildcat 1 is the one to get, and that's sort of the problem with it. Wildcat 1 is not an overpowered attachment at all, because you can, I mean, if you're a good dodger, you can still dodge them. But it gives you that slight extra edge with your Wildcat shots, so it makes a big difference. So there's no reason not to use it. So stock Wildcat does 6 damage. You get 13 shots in your magazine, and it's your standard pistol, right? And then Wildcat 1 will give you faster projectile speed for 1 less damage. But faster projectile speed means more chances to hit your target, which is more consistent damage. And that goes back to that philosophy that everybody knows but nobody says, which is more consistent damage is generally better. So that's why people tend to like Wildcat 1. I'm using Wildcat 1 here, by the way. And I believe Zartok is too. So I would say that, I mean, is it often? I don't think so. But because of the way it's balanced, there's really no reason to use anything else. And that's kind of weird. So do I think it needs to be nerfed just to make the other attachments viable? No. Absolutely not. Please, no. Please don't nerf it. Please. No. Don't do that. I'm not a fan of nerfing things just to make other things so it falls in line with other things if it's balanced well. I would just say that perhaps the other attachments need love. There's like there's like this like rapid fire attachment for it. I don't know which one that is. Like I said, I haven't bothered to unlock the other ones because I know it's the one. I've seen people use it on me, but you just block them. So, it's not really my cup of tea. Good game on Zartok there. He clapped me. I think I was getting really tired by this point. I've been going for more than an hour. And you gotta remember, I'm a big boy. So I started to get tired and worn out. I don't know if I'm going to get a second win. We've got about 10 minutes left of gameplay here. So we got poor Namzil. We'll see if he can get me now that I'm all worn down. But anyways, so we've got Wildcat. And then also, too, though, we have one particular example of weapon where it's sort of the opposite. And that's going to be the Raptor, surprisingly, in my opinion. So the Raptor, the stock the stock form of the weapon seems to be the one you actually want to use, which is the reverse. So there's kind of a fine, hard line that Resolution has to walk, and I know it's super hard for them. So it's hard. I'm not going to deny that, and I'm not going to sit here and say that they have to figure it out or, whatever. Well, okay, of course they have to figure some things out, but I'm not gonna give them that hard of a time for that part. I guess that they've got a hard enough job as it is. Being a game dev is hard because you basically got to deal with a bunch of people, and mostly children, saying that you suck for something that you've poured your personality and blood, sweat, and tears into. But anyways, so Raptor is kind of a weird situation because the stock form of the weapon is really decent. Everyone agrees that Raptor is well balanced. It's a great utility weapon. It's like pocket defense. It's like nobody wants Raptor to be nerfed, but it's just good. Just good stuff. Raptor good. Raptor based, right? So then you have the attachments. So you got one that increases projectile speed but lowers rate of fire, I think. And I think lowers or it lowers the magazine count, so then you get 5 in the cylinder. But since you're lowering the rate of fire and the magazine count, that takes away or the damage or something. That's just that you're taking away from the defensive options of the Raptor, so you don't really want that, and you don't use Raptor for damage anyway. That's not the point. I mean, if you get damage with the Raptor, that's nice, but you're mainly using it for counter pressure. At least that's what I use it for. I think most people would agree. Then you also have a sort of, I think it's, so you have you have speedy, you have ammo. So you have more ammo, so it makes it 7 in the cylinder. But it makes the reload time in between shots really long. And what ends up happening is that one extra bullet seems nice on the surface, so you think, man, that's really nice. But since it shoots so slow, that takes away from the defensive capability, because when you're doing pinch defense, so let's say you're pushing back on a Wildcat push, that's where I think one of the shining examples of where Raptor's really good is countering Wildcats. And you're sitting there and you're going boom, 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 and you just can't keep it with the rate of fire, so also not good. So I'd rather take one less shot to have that rate of fire bump. And then the last attachment's kind of this weird, like, I don't know, it's like this weird osmosis thing going on. I don't know what it is. I haven't bothered to unlock it yet, so I don't know what it's called. But essentially what happens is a splitting attachment. So you shoot one you get 3 shots, you shoot one Raptor ball, and it splits off into 2. What extra benefit this gives, I am not sure, because I've never used it. When I've seen it used against me, I think the initial Raptor ball has more collision, but don't quote me on that, because I've never used it, so I don't know. But then, at that point, why not just use the rapid-fired 6 shots on the stock Raptor? You know? You know what I mean, right? Like, you getting that? So, kind of a weird one there. I'm sure Rez will come up with something. They usually do. If there's one thing that Rez also does an amazing job at, and they do a good job at a lot of things, it's listening. There's no doubt. So I know they'll listen, especially if there's somebody watching these commentaries. I'm sure, maybe Defer is, maybe Tilbit is. I don't know, but somebody will. And I think the laser. I'm doing a lot of tongue clicking today. I don't know what that's about. It's like some fancy thing I'm doing. I'm I'll be honest, I'm really trying to crank these videos out today, so I'm not going to edit this a lot. So you're going to hear all that tongue clicking and slapping. I don't know. I've been out in the sun all day. I know I do IT, but today in particular, I've been out in the sun, so maybe I've got my southern drawl on or something. I'm starting to transform. I don't know. I have no idea what that's about, so I apologize in advance if I just became self-aware, like Skynet, to my tongue clicking. So no idea what that's about today. Because remember, these are just to get these videos out. So just some background. I want to do as little editing as possible or else I just wouldn't have time. Absolutely, I barely have time to play the VRML matches. So if I just sit here and talk in the mic like a jerk, just talk to myself, and forgo my responsibilities as a husband for 30 minutes a day, and get these videos out, the YouTube algorithm will eventually pick these up if I'm pumping these out consistently with minimal editing. Well, I guess the YouTube algorithm doesn't care if you minimally edit. The YouTube algorithm cares if things are consistent. So I guess I'm just trying to work it in that regard. But trying to get Blaston promoted here, I'm trying to do my part. I'm doing my part for the Blaston army, okay? Rise up, Blaston gamers. Okay, so that's all I've got to say about attachments. Let's kick the crap out of Yelkel this last game. Let's talk gameplay. Yelkel's, I've been getting beat up this entire time I've been ranting about attachments. It's time for a W. Let's smack him. Let's get Yelkel in the doghouse. So let's talk about this build a little bit. So I've lost to Yelkel twice already today, and Yelkel has absolutely phenomenal offense. Some of the strongest, I think, in the entire player base, but he has abysmal defense. He's a glass cannon through and through. What I noticed is when I was running my clamp builds, his offense was so sharp and so strong that he would just pierce through my defense like it was nothing. Just my dodging defense. I couldn't. My dodging alone was not enough, so I had to amplify my defense. So I switched to stupid tank novas, and that gave me the defense to overcome the gap in his offense. Pure and simple. And you're seeing that right now because his Viper game is insane now. And that's for two reasons. One, his Viper E arm is very strong on its own, but his bounce Viper game sense has also gotten a lot better. And his directional placement with the bounce Viper is scary. So he'll use it in a couple ways. You'll see him bounce it off the ground. He tends to have a pretty good knowledge of where he wants that Viper to go. You'll see that. And then he also does that overhanded Viper swing down. That's a very scary move. You'll see a lot of very, very high-skilled Viper players do this. JJ does this. I have sometimes seen JC12 do this. Kron will do this. They will take the Viper up from their top, their strong arm, and swing it down like a hammer and bring it right down on top of you. So I'm gonna let Yelkel, laugh this out. He gets his ha 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 ha, hee hee ha, Clash of Clans, and then I'm basically just gonna do the most gimpy thing possible and send a wall of bullets his way because he has really horrible defense, and let him walk right into it. And then we're gonna try to send. There goes the tongue click again. So then we're gonna, by that time, since I used those Novas proactively, they've already cycled back, and I could stop his push, which was nice. So it completely stopped, and now he's back to using stupid Super Majestic, which isn't doing him any favors. And we're already back, and he's feeling it. He's definitely feeling it, and so we just basically corner him. And man, those backhanded Vipers too are scary. I have to give credit where credit is due, even though it's Yelkel. That's not something to sneeze at. So this is a very scary and intense match. He's gotten way better than he used to be. Oh man, I'm jumping and I'm fighting for my life. But All you have to do is just overwhelm his defense. And, yeah. That's all I got for today. So you can see that maybe the yeah, okay, yeah, I know gestures and all that. All right, so thank you for for listening and watching today. And joining me on the Blaston commentary or something with Robo President. I appreciate your time. That's all I've got for today. Go ahead and like, subscribe, all that stuff, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.